Hi, hello, I'm Bobby Cinnamon again. I'm doing another topic about another topic. Another topic we're talking about is King Charles's coronation. What do you expect in that? What do you expect in a coronation? It's like being sworn in as president, except one thing: King Charles is already king. You don't just become king like the. You don't just become king just like that. Mostly after his mother died, he is declared king of England, king of the United Kingdom. But there's also coordination. It's more of like a ceremony. But to me, I always feel like that's in my to me, it's always feel like that's a place where he gets sworn in as king. Mostly it takes like 1 year. Mostly it takes nearly a year after her mother died to get sworn in or get crowned. Even after the coronation, doesn't mean King Charles has to wear the crown all the time. Mostly he just practices it a couple of times. But you always have to ask yourself, what is it like to just be inside? What is inside? What is it like to for a royal coronation? Is like, I know William doesn't have to worry about his because he'll probably be the same age as his father was. I don't know how long Charles will live. Besides, he may be 73, but he might have, if he's lucky, he'll probably outlive his father. Around 99. Her mother, his mother made it all the way through 96. And his father lived all the way through 99 years old. So we don't know how long he can keep the crown going. Right now he has a lot of stuff he has to do. A lot of tours, events he has to do. But right now the only thing he has to do now is get ready for his coronation, and that's another year. Just because you're like a king or a queen of a country means they can do whatever they want. They have schedules, tours, treaties they have to do. And it isn't, and trust me, it's not easy to do that. Try being president of the United States. Now that's a lot tougher than being royalty, because here they have to make tough decisions. Because mostly when you're a president, you have to know what to do and what not to do. There's like a lot of rules out there they have to follow. There are times in my life being a president is kind of fun. You can get into any places you want, just like when Charles was crowned king, he can go any place he wants. Not without his entourage. But he's never spoiled. His father. That's the reason why his father sent him to Coronation in the first place. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want. Wants him to train him to be a great king. Mostly it's not. Mostly a lot of people said it's impossible for King Charles to run a country, but the answer is he's been prepared his whole life. He's not going to give up the throne for anybody. But he will pass the throne to his son William after he passes away. I don't know how many more years he has left in him. But the way I looked at him, he still has like 10 or 20 or 30 years left ahead of him. He could live over 100 or 99. There part of me kind of did thought his father was going to live all the way to 100. But his father didn't want the big big funeral back then. But Queen Elizabeth had a big funeral. It was kind of felt bad there was only 10 or 20 million viewers out there. Diana's funeral was up to 30 million. Even when King Charles passes away, I'm sure there'll be 10 or 20 million viewers too. He'll be watching, and 2,000 people watching who will fit the funeral, and lots of heads of state. It is kind of cool. A lot of times, one thing about being King Charles is that he's going to have to make a lot of tough decisions too. Well, I don't know if he has the power to make any laws, But he does have power to pardon somebody. I think that's true or not, but who knows? I never looked at the laws before. Never looked at what all the pros and cons about being king or queen is. But being Queen Elizabeth was kind of easy being Queen Elizabeth was kind of easy. Besides, Stafford make a lot of tough choices back then, but she did it. She's been through every area, and she's been through every area. She will be missed. But as for the coronation, I don't know what you expect in the coronation when Charles gets crowned. Sometimes I always kind of thought, does that mean he is going to be sworn in as a king? He is already king right now, and he's not like king elect. He already is king. Mostly, there were part of me always kind of wish: is it really a ceremony or being sworn in? Take like an inauguration for the president. If Joe Biden's lucky, he'll win the re-election. He has to get sworn in again to stay as president. What's the toughest thing about running for president? Being a president is making the tough decisions. He can't make any laws, but Joe Biden can pitch any laws, and right now he's working really hard for the midterm election. He's right now trying to urge voters to vote for every 60 senators in the Democratic senators in the White House for the Capitol. Only the 60 senators can pass Roe versus Wade as a new law, and also make sure it doesn't get overturned ever again. Republicans never think things through a lot of times, like Roe versus Wade. People say Republicans are tough, but nobody's ever met a Republican. Sometimes they are like Democrats, and sometimes they are liberal, and sometimes they are for gay rights and equal rights and immigration. Being a Democrat is just because you're a Republican doesn't mean we're conservative all the time. They may look conservative on the outside, but doesn't mean they act conservative. Even if I ran for president as a Republican, doesn't mean I act very conservative all the time. One thing I care about is the people I was sworn to protect. I also have to make sure the laws are passed. Make sure we obey the law. All laws have to be obeyed all the time, but the question is, we don't know what laws are to obey because there's so many of them in this country. At the times, we don't even know if we're doing anything right or wrong. It's like being a president. Half of them are the guys who do run for president are practically lawyers. Even Joe Biden is a lawyer. And he has to read every presidential law in the world. Half the times there's one thing he's always afraid of the most is what law, make sure he doesn't break any. Is that he's afraid of breaking it because deep down, if he makes one mistake, he could be kicked out of office. And it doesn't matter who even if he was a Democrat, mostly for me, if the good news is at least one good. Even though the Congress is run by the Democrats, sometimes he's always afraid that the Republicans might take over again in the midterm election. I look at the senators right now. A lot of people, I don't know if they're even a shoo-in to get 60 senators in office right now. Mostly for me, the Senate hasn't voted for the Roe versus Wade yet because they have to wait until after. Suppose that all 60 Democratic senators all win and are elected. They won't be sworn in until January, so they can't make any decisions about passing any laws. So I think it might start until February or March or the summer to start to reinstate it. Once, if the senators pass the law, Joe Biden has to sign it to uphold it. As for King Charles, what's he up to? What is he gonna? I have no idea what his plans are. Is he gonna go to a country right now to do some tours? Half the times I barely even know where he's going or what he's doing right now. But I know one thing is he is preparing for the sworn. I know he's preparing for the coronation right now. That's all I have to say right now. I'm Bobby Cinema. I'm signing off. I'm Bobby Cinema. Goodbye and good luck.